Hi, this is Shawnee Lavender, the Conscious Moms Coach. And today I want to talk to you about something I wrote recently and posted on my social media accounts and shared. And after I did that, there was a lot of, yay, love that. And there were also a number of, huh? Or, I don't know, I don't think I agree with that. Now, let me say, I am not here to get you to agree with me. I don't mind if we have differences of opinions. I do, however, want to explain what I meant and give some examples because what I shared about was I'm not going to look at it right now, it'll distract me, but I wrote a quote about the importance for us as parents of owning our own emotions. So taking responsibility and saying, when I feel mad, frustrated, sad, happy, elated, whatever I'm feeling, when I feel that, that's my responsibility. Those feelings come from me. Now, I say that because what is most common in our societies is that we hear things like, you made me angry, or you made me so happy. You know, it's both sides. It's not just the quote negative emotions. So what we normally hear is this idea that something you did, you made me feel a certain way. Or it's communicated that way to us. When Shawnee, when you did this, it made me sad. So it runs both directions, but that's the gist of what is the predominant thinking. And so in this post, what I wrote was that we need to take ownership of our emotions because they're ours. They are not caused by our children. They're not caused by other people. And the same is true in the reverse. So when our children feel angry with us, it's not actually caused by us. So that's where some people are like, wait a minute. Yes, I cause my child's feelings, or when they do something hurtful, it causes me to feel hurt. So that's where sort of the rub came in, if you will. So what I want to clarify, and I'm going to give some examples, is that it's really important to understand that whoever is feeling the emotion owns that emotion. That is their emotion. And it comes from a number of things. We have physiological response and reaction to life. Yes, so things happen. So if a loud noise happens, my body, if I'm close by and hear it, my body may react to that. So I may be like startled, right? So I might say, oh, that noise frightened me. Well, no, that noise did cause a physiologic reaction in my body. And based on, in part, my own conditioning and upbringing, I interpreted those sensations, those body sensations, added some thoughts to it, and I put a feeling name onto it. I was scared, or I was frightened, or I was startled. Startled is probably a little more like a physiological response, but you get the gist. So it's like I'm putting my feeling name onto it, but that's still within me. It still came up from within me. Now, it is quite unconscious, so it's not like we consciously choose to feel happy or feel sad. We feel what we feel, and based on our brain wiring and our conditioning, we interpret that as, oh, it's this feeling, it's this emotion. And there's some great resources out there for those of you who want to look more into this. There's a book by Lisa Feldman Barrett called How Emotions Are Made. It's got a subtitle, The Secret Life of the Brain. I can't remember the subtitle at the moment, but that's a great one. There's also TED Radio Hour, which is an NPR show. There's a TED Talk that talks about emotions, and it talks about some of this as well. So if you're intrigued, you're like, I want to learn more, this is weird. However you're feeling about it, those are a couple of resources you might check out. So let me get into the examples and hopefully help clarify. So first, I have a generic example. So let's imagine that you are engaged to be married. So if you're married now, this is not a second marriage, just you're engaged to be married. That's the imaginary scenario. You're engaged to be married. So now I want you to pretend that you're this engaged person and you are really regretting that you said yes. You're feeling a lot of hesitancy. you are starting to think, this actually isn't the right person. I don't want to, you're just having a lot of doubt, but also it's like, you really don't want to do this. Okay. So now let's say that your fiance comes to you and says, I want to call off our engagement. You're going to have a reaction or response, right? You're going to be like, okay. Now it's likely, I'm assuming here, but if that was your own state of mind about the engagement, oh, this is not the right thing. I'm wishing I hadn't said yes. When your fiance says, I want to call it off, my guess is that in that state, you are going to feel relief, maybe elation, like hallelujah. You might feel some sadness, but you're going to be like, woo, I just avoided that one, right? Okay, now let's pretend you're a person who's engaged and you are so in love. This is like, you are absolutely sure this is the best decision you've ever made. You can't wait to spend your life with this person. You are just over the moon. This is the best thing ever. Now your betrothed comes to you and says, I'd like to call things off. Chances are, if that was your orientation, you are more likely to feel crushed, disappointed, surprised, shocked, betrayed, So it's the same action. It's the same person. But you, in these two examples, are different. And so your experience is different. So that person, and either way, they didn't actually cause the emotion. They did a thing that impacted you. So absolutely, it has an impact. And that's one of the clarifications I want to make. In no way was I saying what our children do or what we do or what others do doesn't have impact. That's not what I was saying at all. I was saying that the emotions themselves are in us or in the person feeling them. So in that example I gave, that's what I'm talking about. The emotional experience of that in response to that action, oh, I want to call this off, is strongly influenced by how you already are thinking about it and what it means to you and so on and so forth. Okay? So that's my, neutral example everybody can relate to. I want to give you a parenting example in just a minute. Okay. So the parenting example is this. Let's say, as may be true for you, you have a kindergartner, okay? And you actually have two kids. So you have a kindergartner and, or that age child, 5, 6, 7, depending on your country and where they are. And your kindergartner, she is hitting her toddler brother. So your toddler is, 2, 3. So that's the scenario. Okay, that's what's going on. Now, if you are a parent who comes to parenting with the orientation that misbehavior, so this undesired behavior of the hitting of the sibling, is primarily a result of a kid who is willfully, especially this age child, a kindergartner, is willfully not doing what she knows to do, which is to use kind hands and to treat her brother gently. If that's your orientation, it is more likely that when that behavior happens, when your older child hits your younger child, you are going to be really irritated. Now, all of us would probably not like that, right? We love both of our children. We don't want one being hurt by the other. However, if your orientation is that this behavior, the hitting, is because basically your older child, your daughter, is refusing to do what she knows to do. So it's basically she's purposefully hurting her brother. Your experience internally, the feelings that you feel, is most likely to be frustration, anger, irritation, resentment, rage, even depending, the severity and frequency, all that. Now, let's shift just a little bit. Let's say you're a parent who comes to parenting with the orientation that young children, like a kindergartner, do not have high levels of self-control, and that they want to do really well and they want to behave in loving ways. And yet sometimes they actually don't have the ability to follow through on what they actually know. So in other words, you are coming from the perspective of that child it may know better, but at that moment actually can't do better and needs some loving support. It's likely that your emotional experience of that hitting, you're still probably not going to like it, right? Because again, we said there are kids, we don't want them hurt. And yet you are more likely not to become enraged and really upset because your orientation is different. So the action hasn't changed. There's no difference. It's that you have a different orientation. And so therefore what comes up in you is different. So those are my two examples. And the other sort of example I want to give is this is part of the reason why as spouses or as, different people, we can experience the same event very differently. So if you're married and let's say your child is doing something and your spouse gets really upset at your child, but you're chill, you're like, no big deal. It's the same event. So it's not the event. The event does not cause the reaction. The reaction comes up from within us. So it's impacted by what happens in life. Absolutely. So your child's behavior does influence and impact you. However, how you feel about it is entirely in you. So I'm going to pause for just a second and check and see if there are any questions before I go on with a couple other pieces of clarity that I want to offer. If I can find my Zoom. So I want to clarify, again, just because this was an area that some of the people, when they read what I wrote, although I'm not always sure they read it all, but again, so we all interpret our own things, right? That I do want to clarify. So I was not putting this information out there to say that, number one, other people's feelings are unimportant. So let's take it from this standpoint. So if I'm talking about you taking action and somebody else feeling sad or mad or glad in response to that, in no way am I intending to imply that their feelings should be unimportant. Okay, so that's not what I intended to do. I do think that sometimes it's worth checking in with ourselves and saying, boy, is this their reaction? Is it something I really want to be concerned about? Because I will say this as a recovering, I was going to say a reformed, more recovering people pleaser. I definitely have had experiences in life where when somebody else had a, quote, negative reaction to an action I did, that I would, let me make it better. And sometimes that was not a really healthy choice for me. So I'm not saying, yes, their feelings are important or unimportant, in a big global scale. I'm simply saying that what I wrote in the post I did and the quote was not to say, hey, ignore other people. No, we live in a world, we're communal. And so paying attention to each other is really important. And I definitely believe in that in families. And I support parents around the world to work with their children to be sensitive and attuned and thoughtful. There's different ways to do it though. So that's the first clarification I want to make. Feelings are true no matter what. So even when, and this is part of empathy with your children, when they're feeling upset about something, as parents, sometimes we have that experience where, let's say they're upset that, their favorite cookie is not available. Part of us may be saying, big deal, it's not that big a deal, come on, inside, because we're like, it's just a little cookie, no big deal. That's our perspective. Feelings, if our child is feeling really sad or really disappointed, that feeling is true, absolutely, 100%. Just because we don't agree with it doesn't make it not true for them. It is absolutely true. So if you're feeling a feeling, if you're feeling sad, something happened and you're feeling sad, you feel sad. So I'm not saying, again, that we need to deny what we feel, or our children need to deny what they feel, or somebody that our child is interacting with needs to deny what they feel. Nope, not saying that. Not saying that at all. I'm simply saying that those feelings are the responsibility of who's feeling them. So they're true for them and they're their responsibility. So that's all I'm saying. The third, I think, clarification I want to make is my post also did not mean that our children's actions and our actions, whoever's doing the acting, has no impact. Absolutely. When I speak to my daughter in an unloving way, that has an impact on her. I don't believe it makes her feel any way, because it doesn't, yet it does have an impact on her. So there's no correlation. I was not trying to say anything about, what we do doesn't matter. No, absolutely. Our choices are really important. Simply that our choices don't make anybody feel a certain way. They're going to feel what they feel. And it's helpful and useful to say, is that the kind of choice that I want to be making? Is that helping me create more of what I want in the world? Is that helping my child create more of what they want? So that's the third clarification. The fourth clarification is what I wrote did not mean that we should ignore others' reactions to our children's behavior. So, because this came up, some people were like, well, basically like, well, I want my child to be thoughtful and considerate. And so, this idea of what many parents do, they'll say, when you take so-and-so's toy, they feel sad, or when you hit so-and-so, they feel sad. So that's, again, some of the feedback I got. So I'm not saying that when your child is interacting with somebody else and something happens and the other child feels sad or distraught or mad, I'm not saying, again, ignore that reaction, that feeling that other child is having. I'm simply saying, don't make your child responsible for their feelings. You can say, how do you think that worked when you took that toy from that little boy? Well, he felt sad. Yeah, he's feeling sad. You're not saying you're responsible for it. He's feeling sad. What do you think might help him, have a different experience? If I gave him the toy back. Okay, yeah. Again, you're not saying to your child, hey, forget other people and who cares? No, you still work with them and say, yeah, let's look at is this really what we want to create? Simply don't say you made that child sad or you made them happy. It's like, no, that's your kid doesn't have that power. I wish our kids had that power, but not to make people feel sad, but I wish we were that powerful, but we're not. So those are the clarifications I want to make. So let me pause again and check in for those of you watching on Facebook and see if we have questions to address. So in a nutshell, see if I can do it in a nutshell. I'm not always good at the nutshell, but in a nutshell, what I am saying is when we feel feelings as a parent, or what I was attempting to say in the post, when we feel feelings, let's own them. Let's say, that's how I feel. Nonviolent communication is I think, a very useful tool for this. One of the language ways that they do it is something like, when you fill in the blank, I feel so. It's something like, when you kick me, I feel disappointed. So it's saying, I feel, this is how I feel. It's not really a result of you kicking me. That's how I feel. And then you go on and you do some more. So that's not nonviolent communication. That's a part of how they would teach you to learn how to restate what's true for you and say, yeah, this is how I'm feeling. So that's what I was attempting to say. It's really important to own our emotions as parents and not make our kids responsible for how we feel, whether they are good feelings or bad feelings, quote unquote, right? So that's what I'm saying. Bottom line. What I clarified in this video, I gave some examples of how you can see that, again, it's not the action. It's not what happens. It's what happens plus a lot of other things that leads to us having our experience of a feeling. So I gave some examples. So if you didn't catch that, go back and watch. And then I did some clarification at the end in terms of, yes, other people's feelings in general are important. Yes, pay attention to the choices you make. Help your child pay attention to the choices they make and the way that does influence what else is happening. Simply don't have the add-on of, I made somebody feel that way. You made somebody feel that way. When you do this, it makes me feel. No, it's not necessary. You don't even need to do it. So it's just like, just cut it out. Simplify your life. Don't do that. And take responsibility for your own emotions. Help your child take responsibility for theirs. And absolutely pay attention to if the choices we're making, the actions we're taking, the actions our children are taking are really towards the best and highest good. And let's work with our children. Let's work with ourselves. I know for me personally, I absolutely review for myself, like, hey, is that really the choice I want to make? And if it's not, then I clean it up and I do my best to learn and grow and make a different choice in the future. And yes, I do feel sad when I realize that an action I've taken, my daughter has felt hurt by that, or my husband. Absolutely. I simply don't put the responsibility of their emotions onto me. So that's my point. Those are my points. Those are my clarifications. That's my perspective. Again, you don't have to believe me. There's a lot of data out there that would support it. And for me personally, I think that this approach also not only is more accurate, I also though think that it helps us not take on other people's emotions as our responsibility. And it helps us still choose to be in right relationship with each other, because we can still say, I don't like the way that turned out. I want to adjust. We just don't need the extra idea that, I'm responsible for how that person feels. So I am Shani Lavender. I'm the Conscious Moms Coach. This was a pretty wide-ranging topic today, or discussion today. But check out my other videos. I have a lot that have to do with behavior and behavior change and how to work with our children to be, compassionate, loving community members, both in the community of our immediate families and the wider community. Also, though, I'm here to support parents in making the changes so that we can be the kind of models and we can parent in a way that feels better to us, that's more effective with our kids, and leads to more joy for all of our family members. So if you want to check out what else I have to offer, find me online at shanilavender.com, my YouTube channel, my Facebook page, Instagram. I'm out there. I also have a lovely Facebook community called the Conscious Mom Circle. So check that out. And for those of you that view this video before the end of August of 2018, I have a wonderful free event called the Thriving Family Summit. And that's interviews with 12 parenting visionaries of the conscious parenting movement, and wonderful, wonderful video interviews. And so if you'd like to join that, it's free. And that link for that is bit.ly/join-thrive. And I'll put it in the comments as well. But again, it's B as in boy, it.ly/join-thrive. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.